everybody. Welcome on board, Valkyrie. Mark is pulling the anchor on a nice 43-degree day. And we've had a change of plans this morning. We thought we were going to be taking a few days to anchor at some different areas here on the north end of the East River, but he has decided that we're going to cruise north for about 4 hours today instead. So yeah, so here we are, making some last minute changes. We gotta always keep an eye on the weather and do what we think is the right thing at the time that we have the information. So here we are at 9:15 in the morning, Saturday, February 24, and we are pulling anchor and heading north up the East River into the Long Island Sound. We started the engines about 10-15 minutes ago, and now the anchor is up and off we go. City Island is, compared to the quaintness of Cape Cod, there's been a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows filmed here. Several houses used as backdrops to movies and TV. And we're gonna turn back into the river, and we're gonna be passing a couple of islands that have quite a bit of history to them. Not happy history for sure. So that information is on my website, on the blog dated yesterday, February 23rd. So take a look at it, because it makes for some pretty interesting reading to hear all about the history of a couple of these islands in this area. And this island in front of us here is Hart Island, which is one of the islands that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. This lighthouse way out here is called the Stepping Stone Lighthouse, built in 1877, I believe. There's some gravestones you can see here on Hart Island. This is Execution Lighthouse. Apparently colonial prisoners were brought here and tied to the stones and left to drown during high tide. Alright, so we're about an hour in to our cruising day. We're estimated to be at our next anchorage around 2:30. It's about 10:30 right now. We're cruising at about 8.5 knots and 58 feet of water. That's quite a bit of water.
Yeah.
Better than the 5-6 feet we saw in coming and going from Manio. Gosh, I'm never going to pronounce that right. Anyway, so we're in Long Island Sound. All is well, an hour in.
That anchorage, by the way, was mud. Chain was a little muddy, not horrible. It was a little bit breezy, but as soon as I started getting close to the anchor, it pulled right out, and we started drifting with the wind pretty quickly. I want to be aware of how soft the mud was there. Pretty soft.
Pretty soft mud. It's about 11:40, and Mark is in the engine room. He discovered about 10:30 this morning that we have a fuel leak on our port diesel engine. It was just a little drip that he didn't think he was going to have to worry too much about. He thinks it's a cracked fitting, and so he let it go, wrapped a rag around it, and has been checking it every half hour since. And so now the rag is saturated. So he just went to get some of his spare fittings and is in the engine room taking care of that. Originally he thought it was something he could wait to look at in a couple of days when we get to Newport. We just made reservations to stay at a marina in Newport for Tuesday through Friday to get out of some weather. But then he decided this last engine room check that he can't wait. So he's down there with some fittings and seeing what he can do. The Long Island Sound today is very quiet. We've got just a tiny little chop hitting us from the northwest. We don't even really notice it, especially after what we've been through, coming off Ocracoke and the New Jersey shore. But it's a pretty straight line. We have right here, we're just going straight. I got a buoy up here, I just need to keep to my right, and we'll just see what happens with this fuel leak. Hopefully it turns out to be just a matter of him changing out one of those fittings. Wish us luck. Okay, so Mark just came up from the engine room.
Yes.
And he was checking on that fuel leak.
Yes. I pulled the fittings that I had. I don't have the exact fitting to replace the one that I think may be cracked. So when we're done running today, I will take the rags off and try to come up with another way to configure it. Might even just take the pressure gauge off. We'll see. But I gotta take the rags off and see what I can do to try to rebuild it, redesign it in a different way with the fittings that I have.
Okay. So how much is it leaking? Where is it leaking?
It comes out of the fuel filter housing, and it's like a Christmas tree that holds, there's a fuel pressure sensor, and then there's also a pressure gauge. So, but it comes out of the fuel filter housing, and I may just have to do away with the pressure gauge for now. I could probably do away with all of it if I had to, but I don't have a plug. So I would probably at least put the fuel pressure sensor back on. Even if I just thread that in directly, that would at least stop the leak, and then I can deal with it when I get home. So yeah.
Okay. It's a good thing you do your hourly your hourly engine checks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't go down there and multiple hours later after we were done cruising, who knows what kind of mess would have been down there. And you're back. How is everything?
Leaking.
Works worse?
I think so.
Oh.
An old beach towel.
Oh. Now we're gone from rags to towel. So, bummer. So the leak has gotten a little bit worse.
As long as it stays together for a couple more hours.
Yep, we got 2 more hours of cruising, so hopefully nothing dramatic happens between now and the time we get to anchor. Set the anchor, and we are in Milford. Connecticut. It's about just past 20 after 2. We left this morning a little after 9. Mark is setting our anchor alarm. So how much anchor chain did you let out?
60, 90, like 120.
120 feet.
A little more than usual to deal with the wind.
A little more than usual to deal with the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is Mark's unedited raw footage from the repair he did to the fuel leak from today's trip.
Today, developed a small leak in the diesel fuel system on the port side main engine. And the problem is with all of these fittings, I have a pressure gauge, pressure sensor there. There's a bunch of little copper, brass, whatever fittings, and started to leak. And so my short-term solution was to just catch the diesel fuel, soak it up. And so now I'm going to take a look at things and see what I can do. The leak is right there. So it's a reduced bushing and then this male by female elbow, and I'm not sure yet if that's something here has a crack in it perhaps. And then this comes out, comes up, tees an elbow to the pressure switch and then to a pressure gauge. I'm going to take this apart and see what is actually broken. Okay, see that right in there? That is a hairline crack. This is just a closed nipple. If I have one, I'll be able to put it all back together. And that came out of there. And that back out here. That is the filter housing back there. So let's see if I have this and see if I can put it back together. Alright, so here's my broken fitting with the crack in it. And I have taken out all these extra fittings and I have simplified it to just this. And I'm gonna go fire off the engine and check for leaks, and hopefully everything's good and tight, and hopefully I won't have any more problems. But that's what I've come down with now. Alright, all done. I like it better than it was before. Less things to break. Sturdy. Fits. I can get the oil cap off. I can open up the cover on the generator. That's good. And so far, knock on wood, I've never had any trouble with the one on the other side. It's way out of the way. So that's it. It's a wrap.